Today our speaker is Oussama Zebda, and he'll speak about Arab migration to Europe, pros and cons. So, Oussama, my first question is if it will be more convenient for you if the audience will ask questions during the lecture or after it.
Okay, I guess that I will give them the opportunity to ask by the end of presenting the first section.
Yeah. Oussama is the president and founder of the International Youth Council Friends Association. So, Oussama, if you want to speak a bit more words about yourself. So,
okay, can you share the presentation, please? So, hello everyone, and welcome to today's lecture about Arabs' immigration to Europe, pros and cons. Can you please move to the next slide? So, my name is Oussama Zebda. I'm the president and founder of the International Youth Council France Association. This organization aims to promote the sustainable development goals and the human rights in Tunisia and worldwide. Also, I'm the project manager in Cycle Investment, which is a French tech company specialized in IT solutions based on in the cloud. Also, I'm an information system auditor and consulting of extended IT companies. And finally, I have a degree in software development as an engineer. So this is who I am. Next slide. During today's lecture, I will be speaking about the timeline of Arab immigration into the European Union. After that, we will pass through some survey organized by a German organization, which name it is KAS, about the brain drain in the Arab world. After that, we will talk about pros and cons of the Arab immigration into the European Union. Finally, we will wrap it up into a conclusion. So let's start with the timeline of the Arab immigration into the European Union. So in this section, I will be speaking about a timeline of the Arab immigration into Europe from the Umayyad Caliphate to Germany's 2017 payout to refugees volunteering to go home. So I'll be presenting all the timeline from the beginning of migration of Arabs to Europe until now. This will help us, give us more understanding about the reasons and the context that motivate the Arabs to migrate into the European Union. So let's start. Okay. The Umayyad Caliphate is at its height, from 661 to 750. So Arab and Berber troops from North Africa who are loyal to the Islamic Umayyad Caliphate invade the Iberian Peninsula and conquer most of what it's known now as Spain and Portugal. So in the centuries that follow, Al-Andalus or Islamic Iberia experienced a golden age of art, science, and architecture. And its height, it has a population over 5 million Muslims. So thanks to the Arabs' migration to Spain, it has faced some kind of prosperity during that era. So the Umayyad Caliphate was the second of the four major caliphates established after the death of Prophet Muhammad. The caliphate was ruled by the Umayyad dynasty, and the third caliph of the Rashidun Caliph, Uthman ibn Affan, was also a member of Umayyad clan. So let's move to the next slide. So back on January 1492, the 700 years long reconquest of the Iberian Peninsula ends with the fall of Granada. So the last state in Spain controlled by the Moors, which is a word used to refer to all Muslims, Berbers, or Arab who conquered the peninsula. So it's followed more than a century of forced culture and religious assimilation, including a ban on Arabic language, Arabic names, and traditional dress. Next slide, please. Also on April 9, 1609, the Habsburg King Philip III, signs off on the expulsion of all Spain's Moriscos, or Little Moors, the pejorative term used for the former Muslims living in Spain, who have been forcibly converted to Christianity after the fall of Granada. So in the following 4.5 years, an estimated of 275,000 Moriscos are put on ships to North Africa. The mass deportation in Europe's biggest at the time. So we have also the impact of this migration from the Muslims who were installed in Spain and who were forced to come back to their origin country, like North Africa, for example. It has created so many impact in the architectural, in even in the culture, in the clothing, and which we can see even till now. So next slide, please. Now we can go a little bit further, like on November 17th, back in 1869, in the United Kingdom, and especially after the Suez Canal opens, the first Yemeni arrive in the UK from the port of Aden, which is under British control, working on British ships. So small Yemeni communities from in port cities such as South Shields, Cardiff and Liverpool around Arab boarding houses. So they become the oldest continuous Muslim community in the UK. So in 1909, the first Arab seamen's boarding house is opened in South Shields by the end of the First World War. So around 3,000 Yemenis live in the northeastern English city. Next slide. So back on August 1st, 1914, in France, and after the First World War breaks out, European power recruit colonial subjects into their armies, and to make up for domestic labor shortage, France drew heavily on its Northern African colonies, more than 500,000, for around 500,000 forces recruited by France, who came from Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia. So France also recruits around 200,000 laborers from its colonies. So around 119,000 are Algerians who come to France to work on its munitions, factories, agricultural sector, chemical industries, and more. While French authorities isolate North African workers by housing them in guarded barracks, some do interact with French natives, so even some of them marry with French women. After the war ends, most of the laborers return to their native countries. Next. So on February 7th, 1919, and especially precisely in the United Kingdom, the first ever race riot takes place in South Shields when hundreds of members of the city's Yemeni and English communities clash. So during the First World War, the Yemeni community in the northeastern English city grows rapidly. So after they are called in to fill the gap in the workforce left by Britons joining the Royal Navy. So demobilization leads to a surplus of labor, and racial tension build when seamen returning to their South Shields find that their jobs have been stolen or taken by mostly Arab foreigners. So this leads to a lot of riots. 8 Arabs are arrested and imprisoned. Attacks on Arab boarding houses and cafes continue throughout the 1920s, with a second violent riot taking place in 1930. Next, please. So also in 1960, and precisely in Germany, the German Academic Exchange Service opens its second foreign office of post-World War II era in Cairo, Egypt. This opening helped, after the Second War, Germany is occupied and not allowed to have its own foreign policy. Instead, the country establishes cultural relationships and academic ties as a proxy foreign policy. So Arab students are down to Germany by the promise of free higher education, and many of them end up staying, becoming university professors, engineers, and doctors. Next. So on October 17th, during the year 1961, so in the middle of the Algerian War of Independence, a peaceful demonstration in Paris, France, by about 30,000 Algerians supporting independence is repressed with security forces, killing dozens of protesters. So during the war, which starts back in 1954 and ends in 1962, the number of Algerians living in France grows from 211,000 to 350,000. So violent conflicts between competing nationalist factions within the diaspora playing out on French street, and armed attacks, the National Liberation Front on French police, leads to repressive policing tactics and racial profiling, further bolstering existing support from the Algerian nationalists in France. So when protesters gather on October 17th to demonstrate against a newly imposed curfew on Algerians in Paris and its suburbs, police responded with violence, shooting and beating demonstrators and pushing them into the scene. So up to 300 Algerians are throughout to have been killed on the night and in days that follows. So next, please. Okay, so on June 21st, and specifically during the year 1963, Germany signs its first labor recruitment deal with the Arab country like Morocco. After the Second World War, an economic boom created a labor shortage in some Western European countries who looked elsewhere to fill the demand. So throughout the late 1950s and the 1960s, Germany, France, the Netherlands, and Belgium signed bilateral recruitment agreements with several Southern European countries like Turkey, also from North Africa like Morocco, Tunisia. So the immigrants who start coming to Western Europe throughout the agreement are predominantly male and low skilled. Next, please. Okay, so on November 23rd, and during the year 1973, the German government bans the recruitment of guest workers from non-ECC countries. The ban comes at a time of economic recession in Germany, triggered in part by the 1973 oil crisis. Next. Okay. So now we will talk more about Netherlands, Belgium, France during the year 1974. So other European countries hit by the economic downturn also moved to a more restrictive immigration policy. So the Netherlands stops its recruitment program in 1973, as well with France and Belgium, implementing a halt on immigration in 1974. So in many cases, the outcome of these restrictive policies are contrary to their purpose. So many immigrants decide to stay in their host country permanently rather than going back for temporary jobs. So, and bring their families over as family reunification policy is relaxed in most of these countries. So as a result, Arab immigration into Europe originating from foreign recruitment deals continues and take on a more permanent nature because, as I said, the family reunification policy is relaxed and accepted in this country during that period. So the number of Moroccans in Western Europe, for instance, quadruples between 1972 to 1992. This the reason why even if when they put it some restriction, the number continue to increase. Next, please. Now we're getting closer to our period. So in 1986, and especially in Germany, a caricature titled "The Skyline of Cologne" soon by German artist Klaus Pielert shows that a fear of Islamization due to immigration is far from a recent development. So the cartoon depicts Cologne's famous cathedral surrounded by minarets, which is some building which we find it usually in the mosques of the Muslims. Next, please. This leads us to March 29th, and especially in 1993. So Charles Pasqua becomes Interior Minister of France. So setting a goal of zero immigration into France, he introduces the so-called Pasqua laws, which restrict immigration through measures, including the tightening of family reunification laws and making it more difficult for foreign students to become long-term residents. So the tightening of France's immigration laws follow an increase in popularity of the far-right National Front, led by Jean-Marie Le Pen, in the mid of 1980s and early of 1990s, which leads some mainstream politicians to embrace components of his anti-immigrant agenda. Next, please. So this leads us to the most recent photo and the most popular photo back on September 2, 2015, and precisely in Greece and Italy, a photo of the body of the 3-year-old Alan Kurdi, washed up on a Turkish beach, draw widespread international attention to Europe's ongoing refugee crisis. So in all of 2015, the 28 countries that make up the EU receive more than 1.25 million first-time asylum applications. So around 363,000 of them are from Syria. So according to the International Organization for Migration, which is a UN agency, more than 853,000 refugees and immigrants arrived in Greece by boat, with an additional to 153,000 traveling by sea to Italy. Next, please. So now we arrived to the end. So the most recent significant event. So back on February 1st, in 2017, a program to pay asylum applicants in Germany to return home gets underway. So the German government has earmarked 40 million euros, about $48 million for Start Healthy Plus or Start Help Us, offering 1,200 euros, which is around $1,450 to people over 12 who withdraw their asylum applications before receiving a decision on their case. Please, thank you. So the program reflects pressure on the German government to reduce the number of people coming to Germany, as some Islamophobic movements are gaining support in the country in advance of the general election in September. Next, please. Okay, so August 15th in 2017, also in Spain, as many European countries tightened their policies on borders, migrants are seeking alternative passages. So more than 9,000 migrants, mainly from North Africa, arrived in Spain between January and August 2017, surpassing the 2016 totals according to the International Organization for Migration. Next. So in the first section, we have seen the timeline, the historical timeline from the beginning of Arabs' immigration to the European Union. So before continuing to the second section, if you have any question, I'm ready to answer.
So they're shy, and I think after the lecture, so there will be a lot of questions.
Yes. Okay, the second section is the brain drain in the Arab world. So during this section, I will show you the result of a survey which was run by a very famous organization, KAS, which is a German non-governmental organization which always implement and elaborate so many surveys in different subjects, also organize so many events related with spreading democratic values in all over the world. So please, let's start by the next slide. So the survey asked so many citizens from North African and Middle East region. So the first question was like, have you considered immigrating to another country in the last 12 months? So the people who says yes, 34% from Lebanon say yes. Tunisia come as the second country, so 31% of the requested people say also yes. Then it comes Jordan, after that Morocco, and finally Algeria. The second question, so do you encourage family member to immigrate to Europe? So the Lebanese or the Lebanon say 59% of the requested Lebanese say yes. 37% from the Tunisian requested say yes. And from Morocco, 31%, and finally from Libya, 14%. Next, please. Just to give you information also about this survey was run back in 2020. Please return to the previous. Thank you. So as I said, like all these informations were taken during 2020 survey by KAS organization. Next slide, please. Okay, so the third question is like, have you considered immigrating to another country in the last 12 months? But this time there is a difference between the first category, which is people from 18 to 29 years old, and the lighter blue is for the people more than 30 years old. So for the Lebanese, the youth category, like said, 53% of them say yes. However, 25% from the other, the eldest one, say no. In Tunisia too, like the most younger citizens say yes, like around 47%. However, 25% of the eldest generation said yes. The same thing with Jordan, Morocco, and Libya, and we see like each time the younger generation and the younger citizens always are always seeking for migrating to another country for the last 12 months. Next, please. Okay, so this move leads us to the next question. Have you considered immigrating to another country in the last 12 months? But this time we will focus on the educational level. So the lighter blue means like the citizens have some kind of higher diploma, like engineers, doctors, and so on. And the darker blue means like the maximum degree is the secondary degree. So the Lebanon case, like we have 52% of them say yes, like the most graduated generation and with higher diploma are more than half of them are seeking for new opportunities outside of their country. However, 24% of the category with less diploma, with less qualification, are seeking to migrate to another country. The same thing with Tunisia, Jordan, also Algeria. But in Libya, we have the same rate, like whatever your educational level, all of them like meets with the same rate and the same motivation in order to seek new opportunities in different countries. Next slide, please. So rating the country's economy, how can I say? The survey asked also the segment of people that were participating during that survey. So about the country's economy level. So the percentage of the people who said good or very good, like in Morocco, they said 39%, in Libya, 26%, in Algeria, 26%, Jordan, 23%, and in Tunisia, 3%. Like they're all agree that the economical state level in Tunisia is so bad. Next, please. And in Lebanon, it's less than 1%, which is really understandable, especially with the current situation in Lebanon. Okay, so the reason of immigrating. So who say economic reason in Lebanon, Jordan, Tunisia, Libya, Morocco, and Algeria, all of them, like more than 50% of the participants say the main reason is an economic reason for their migration. And the reason of for migration, who say political reason, like it's so low in Morocco, Jordan, Lebanon, and it's kind of high in Libya, Tunisia, and Algeria, which is due to the unstable political situation in these countries. So next, please. Okay, so this leads us to pros and cons. I don't know, before starting the pros and cons, do you have any questions before continuing? Okay, perfect. So let's start with the pros. Like The pros, I will start like the pros and cons for the European countries. So the pros for the European countries of welcoming a new immigrants from the Arab world is like to have a cheap workforce. Like the salary of the Arabs workforce is cheaper than the same employees, but from the European countries. Like they will have the same workforce with half or even with a very cheap salary. The second, can you return to this, the previous slide? Okay, so the second pros is like to populate all the cities with decreasing demographic rate. For example, in Italy, they have started a strategy about selling houses with only $1 in order to motivate international to buy in the rural cities. So populating these kind of rural cities will make sure that these cities remain and will never be empty in the future. The third thing of the pros is like to have cross-cultural diversity, like having this kind of a pizza plate from different the different background will leads to diversity, will leads like to growth, economical also growth, to cultural enhancement and the cultural diversity in these regions. The fourth pros for the European countries and the most and one of the most important thing is to find like a ready profiles and a ready candidate for some professional position. For example, you know, countries, Arab countries are investing so much money in teaching their population in like medicine, engineers, and high profile, how can I say, a position. And the European countries find like these profiles and these competences and skills in a plate of gold without investing anything and any money, which is very important for them. So these are like some of the pros for the European countries. The cons, like the first of thing is, how can I say, the first of thing is the fear of Islamization of the current population. So there is a fear in the European country about the Islam, about increasing the rate of Muslim in the European countries, which could impact the traditions, the habits of the European citizens. So there is like a very huge fear that is shown and that we can even detect in our social media via the hate speeches from the politics leaders to the normal citizen, which is really exists now. But of course, it's not all of the social media and these people, but it's like a percentage that exists now who are afraid from Islam and spreading Islam in Europe. So the second thing is, how can I say, like there is a positions or a work position in different arenas that become a huge attraction for Arabs because of their cheap salary. So now European can face some concurrence between the Arabs and the native European citizens, which is also can lead to some conflicts, to some social hate, to some demonstration that we have seen also during the last few months in some European countries, and so on. The third thing is the fear of propagation of the COVID-19 and so many other viruses. So now, like, there is so many restriction regarding the migration and traveling policies. Now, so I will talk about the other side, but from the perspective of the Arab countries. So the pros of migrating the Arab to the European Union is minimizing or decreasing the unemployment rate in the national scale. Like every government in the Arab world are seeking new employment opportunities, whatever, in any country of the world, so they can mitigate the increasing rate of unemployment in the Arab world, which is so high comparing with with the other regions because of the youth population. The second point is to have like more international currency that's sent back from the immigrants to their family in their native countries. So it's kind of investment, like sending immigrants from, for example, Tunisia they will definitely return dollars and how can I say, and the euros to their family, so which can help the national economy. The third thing is the diversity too. Like when you have a population that is open-minded to some European countries, like this will help the government to, in their way, to of globalization, to be adapted to the international standards and to the international community. So, which is the same thing that's happening now in Saudi Arabia. So they become more and more flexible, more and more open to the European culture, to the Western culture, and they're even motivating the youth to go and study abroad in so many European countries and even American countries. The cons about, from the perspective also of the Arab world, the Arab region, is like waste of investment. Imagine like some countries investing so much money in the educational system, on paying the universities, schools. For example, in my country, Tunisia, education is for free. Like we don't pay for our education from any level. Like we have like free education from primary school to universities, which is I guess is very waste of investment, because you will send all the result of this educational system for free to European countries. The second thing, the second cons is like brain drain. For example, if the elite of your country will migrate due to the attemptation of high salary in the European Union, so this will lead like to a shortage in competences in the national scale. This was like a huge. We saw like that very significantly during the pandemic, when we didn't have like enough doctors to respond to all the increasing number of infected people with COVID-19. So losing competences in the national scale, it's a huge waste for any countries. And thirdly, and which is also very important, like this losing your population or losing people from your country, it's like propagating the responsibility or throwing your own responsibility to the other countries. Imagine a country like motivating their citizens to go abroad their country. This is like a short-term solution to mitigate unemployment rating increase. So by finding and giving like so many opportunities to study or to work in Europe, it's like throwing the responsibility of employment, of investment, of creating new employment opportunities for your citizens by providing them just opportunities and by facilitating them only the process of looking new jobs in the European Union. So it's like throwing just responsibility to other third party, which is the European Union. So these are the main pros and cons from the both perspective from the European countries and the Arab world. So this will conclude, leads us to the conclusion. So our conclusion, whatever the legislative that fixed by the European Union or the Arabs in order to lighten the increasing number of immigrants in the European Union, whatever the restriction, whatever the policy, the immigrants from the European countries and even the sub-Saharan countries that come to North African countries in order to go to arrive to the European Union with alternative passages, I mean like with an illegal way, if you do so many restrictions, they will find another way in an illegal way, and they will face the same problem, an increasing number of refugees and immigrants from the Arab world. If they facilitate, they will find like so many Arabs that are willing to migrate to the European Union. So even according to the survey led from the KAS and so many other studies about the migration from the Arab to the European Union, the reason is much more bigger than we think it is, because it's related with the economic, the financial situation in their country, even with the freedom, even it's related even by mental health, because honestly, exercising every day's routine in an Arab world, it will be different from the European Union, thanks to their more sophisticated infrastructure, thanks to their more sophisticated administrative system, and days to day, every day is like a routine. So as a conclusion, we need to have a balance between both the European Union and the Arab world in order to balance the flow of immigrants from the Arab world to the European Union with a way that doesn't impact the both parties in a negative way. So thank you everyone for your attention, and I leave the floors for your questions. By the way, I will show you also my contacts. Can you move to the next slide? So here are my contacts if you have any questions and if you want to stay in touch. That's it.
Yes, thank you very much for your lecture. It was really interesting. And I have a small question. Why immigrants choose European Union, but not like any other Arab countries? Well, they have practically the same culture, so it would be probably easier for them to move to like Arab countries than to European Union. So why is this tendency here?
Okay, the Arab world has never been a stable world. It's like a region with so many challenges, with so many conflicts, with so many financial crises. Even you can see now the conflicts between Algeria and Morocco and what they have between them, and the issues that existing now, even the problems that we can see in the Gulf countries, the Arab world has never been like a stable region or a region with good relationships. However, the European Union is promoting himself like the best place, like is the land of the dream, via all the cultural influence that was led during the last few years. So it's kind of how can I say, the propaganda, the cultural influence from the European Union, the geography of the Arab world, and its a nearby distance with the European Union. So I guess it's like the instability of the Arab world and the high or the promotion of a stable European Union, which contains so many opportunities, are the main keys that motivate the Arab citizens and the Arab immigrants to go to the European Union.
Thank you very much for your answer.
Okay. So let me ask you the second question. As I recently heard, the far-right French presidential candidate Eric Zemmour proposed and promised to expel all illegal migrants from France if he becomes the president. So how do you feel about it? And can it become true?
Okay, so I guess it will be remaining a theoretical thing, and it won't be moved to the practical way, because like for example, France depends with the Arab world. Like they can't like resend all these huge number of illegal immigrants from France to Arabs. Like even this process will consume the French government like so many investment and money, which is, I guess, only a propaganda before the French election, which will be happening the next few months. So in reality, I guess like France needs these immigrants for the how can I say, to fulfill its need in so many job positions, which are seeking so many immigrants and so many workers, which like the French citizen couldn't how can I say, couldn't satisfy, because of the low salary that the French citizens won't accept this kind of position. That's why the businesses and small businesses, especially these businesses that couldn't, that doesn't need high qualification to work with in it, like they need the immigrants and they need the low salaries. So I guess it will be only a propaganda before the election, French election, and it won't like be or realize it and move it actually to the practical way.
So thank you. Matvey, please.
My question is about, you are saying that European countries are interested in Arab immigrants because of because they can pay them less than European citizens. But and you say about in positive connotation, and my question is, doesn't it make European citizens angry about all this situation, that where working places are being taken by immigrants, or the net medium salary in the country is going down. I hope you understand what yes.
Yeah. Okay, so it's really happening. Like there are so many Europeans who are angry from their government about their policies and flexible policies in welcoming like immigrants. However, it's like kind of very taboo subject or something which is very, how can I say, very critical for both governments and the businessmen and the investors in the Europe, because as you can see, even there is so many studies, like they say, like in the next 30 years, the native European people, like their reproduction rate will be decreasing and won't be filling the needs of their market, the companies in the European Union. So the European Union can't survive by closing its borders from the world, and including the Arab world. So there is a dependencies, because they have like free how can I say, competences, free without investing any money in these engineers, doctors, and nurses, and so many other working arena. So I guess whatever like the interpretation or whatever the reaction of the European population, it can impact or it can result so many decisions. But honestly, in the real world, I'm not expecting my experience, I guess, like where the European Union closed their door, because even European are and their countries in order to economical goals. Like there is so many dependencies and closing these doors. So not conflict, but debate that can be resulted in the national scales in the European countries. I don't see like these measurements will be taken in the near future.
Thank you. Alisa, please, your turn.
Okay, thanks a lot for the lecture. My question is also about France. I've heard that there a bill was passed which threatens the places of doctors, especially doctors from Arabic countries, even those with a license, who already have experience working in France, but not for so long. If I remember correctly, if they work less than 3 years, so they may lose their places. And I wonder where it may stem from and what may be the consequences. Like, are these doctors likely to return to their native countries, or maybe not? Maybe that's not a way for them.
Okay, so I will take in this example the case of Tunisian doctors who migrate to France in order to find a job or continue their professional career there. Like, for example, in France, the Tunisian doctors are accepted without doing what we call in French equivalence. Equivalence, which means like studying more years in order to get the accreditation from the French government to certify that you're a doctor respecting the French standards. Like for Tunisian doctors, they will be accepted directly without doing this equivalence period. However, for Italian, for example, for doctors who are coming from Italy, they need to do the equivalence in France in order to continue their professional career. So this example like means the France they really how can I say appreciate the educational system implemented, for example, in Tunisia, and they know like the Tunisian doctors are the same qualification as the French doctors. And we can see so many success stories in running so many difficult operations during the last decades. So whatever like the complications and whatever the procedures that they will discuss or they will put, especially regarding the doctors, I can really like guarantee that especially with this critical field and this critical working arena, I guess like France needs more doctors than any other like period of time, especially after COVID and the five wave. Like now we're talking about a 5 wave during this winter. So I guess it's just some kind of how can I say talks before, as I said, the election, especially in France. So it's just some propaganda and it's just some electional promotional how can I say election campaign or something like that. So I hope you get it.
Thank you. And Matvey wants to ask you the second question.
So my question about Scandinavian countries, as I know, most of Arabic immigrants to Scandinavian countries are refugees, actually, and there are also a lot of problem with integration of these immigrants into European societies of these countries. Immigrants don't learn languages of the countries, they form enclaves, and they, in some countries, for example, Denmark, they don't have access to labor market because of their legislative systems. And actually, this situation creates a number of problems, as it's obvious, I guess. And my question is how European countries or European societies might mitigate all those negative processes and issues.
Okay, so concerning the integration into the European countries or the European culture, especially the Scandinavian countries, I totally agree with you. Like it's always a huge, how can I say, it's kind of challenging to be integrated in any culture. So it's really a thing that that we can't resolve. Like it depends with so many factors because it's related with the language, with the culture, with the tradition. So it's not an easy thing like to get accepted in a country without trying or making efforts in order to integrate within it. So I guess like for example, countries like France, they have organization or institution that help new immigrants to integrate in the French society by teaching them their traditional, their cultural, their standards and their even laws. However, in the Scandinavian country, I don't know, I don't have so many information about how what institutions are using in order to integrate the new immigrants, especially those who have, how can I say, long residency in Scandinavian countries. However, I know so many of my friends who are working in Scandinavian countries and they're doing, they're enjoying their stay. And I guess like it depends even with the educational level of the immigrants. I know like if you're qualified enough to compete with the local in any countries, they will respect you. However, if you have a lower educational system and you're trying to how can I say, just enjoy the life there and without contributing in the national and in the country, of course, you will have not very appreciation from the people from this country. So it's a normal thing, I guess. For the refugees part, that's true. Like the Scandinavian countries, like have somehow more acceptance for refugees, but in the last few years, I guess, like German government, like accepting so many refugees, even I guess until now they're the most welcoming country of refugees comparing with the other countries.
Ranis, please ask a question.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ranis. And I have one question about the migration from South Africa to the Europe. And my question is, how migration from South Africa exchange after the coronavirus?
Okay, so especially after the new variant in South Africa, like every country is putting so many restrictions for South African immigrants, even for the tourists, even the businessmen and the business purposes travel, like they're putting so many restriction, unfortunately, to the immigrants from the South African citizens. However, before the COVID, like South Africa is a part of the Commonwealth countries, like they have more access to UK, especially and Scandinavian countries. They have like a better chance comparing with the other sub-Saharan and Southwest African countries. However, if we talk about a legal way to move to the European Union, like South African citizens need like to go in an illegal way to the North Africa's countries, and when arriving to North Africa's Africa countries, like they will do or they will use all the illegal ways to enter to the European Union.
Maria, please.
Okay, I would like to ask about the impact of the pandemic on migration. So, as we know, the consequences of a pandemic in the migration sphere may turn out to be longer and unexpected, and a sharp decrease in migration flows had a negative impact on the economic situation, not only in home, but also in host countries. So can we say that this crisis can lead to a radical revision of attitudes towards migration, especially labor migration, and also entail changes in the relevant aspects of the political platforms or other parties and so on? Thank you.
Okay, so the post-COVID era will be challenging for everyone regarding the labor immigration or even the national in the national scales. However, I guess like the positive point about the post-COVID era is like so many companies are now open for remote jobs. So they are now like offering some kind of positions, full remote for international workers that have like they're skilled enough to fulfill these jobs requirements, and their salary in euro or in dollar, which is very interesting. So I guess whatever the impact, everyone will have the same challenges, and it will be, I guess, it will be definitely it have like it has like some kind of negative impact, but also it will have like this kind of positive impact, because before COVID we didn't have the opportunity to talk about remote full job with where employees are paid in euro or in dollar. So having like high salary while living in your native countries is a great opportunity for, of course, for some specific workers arena. So actually, I want to thank you for your attention, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to be present today among you and to present this sensitive topic and hot topic actually about migration from the Arab world to the European Union. And I hope like we learned new things during these lectures. And that's it. Спасибо again.